Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fifth round of the McLaren 650S 650S GT3 Cup Challenge live on RF2 Asia TV. I'm your commentator and host for this round, Lachlan Andrews, and join us as we prepare to get ready for the fifth round as we are at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. The championship has been coming to a very tight space as of late, with the championship lead being tied with Kumar and Lewis Morano, both on 54 points, both winning two rounds each as the championship has progressed, with Lewis Morano taking 2 wins in the first 2 races, but issues in the third and fourth round led to Kumar achieving 2 wins as well, thus tying up the championship very nicely. Coming into this round, we do have a very good entry list so far, with 10 drivers currently out on track at the moment in the final couple of minutes of the practice session as they wind down getting ready to participate in the qualifying session that will determine the grid for today's 40-minute race. So far, when we're looking at the timesheets, Kumar is on top with a time of 1 minute 17, nearly dead, followed by Josh Hoare with only just 7 hundredths of a second off the fastest lap time. As we look up and down the field, we do have a great entry list today with the likes of Niranjan Kumar, Arun Taruna, Alexis Calapano, Parala Jalu, Josh Hoare, Han Lang, who's been a very decent driver in the mid-pack. He's always been up there in terms of positioning. We do have RF2 Asia regular Chris Payne currently running well in 7th place. Hopefully he can be up for another decent finish today. We also have Dennis Hawkins, Hanan Sam, and Indra Franto to round up the top 10. Hopefully more drivers will join the server as the qualifying session gets underway very shortly. As already mentioned, today we are at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, which is a very short, nearly 3.957 kilometre long circuit with 10 corners. It's a very fast-flowing circuit with only two slow corners. It turns 5 and 6, but most of it's very windy and high speed that will help the drivers in terms of, as Josh Hoare now goes up to the top with a time of 1 minute 16. So that adds extra speed onto the drivers and a lot of competition we're expecting tonight. Han Lang is now up into 6th, which is great to see. The whole field is separated by just 5 seconds, so we're expecting to have a lot of good competition as for tonight's race. The time has now wind down to 0 as several drivers are still out on circuit looking to get that one last lap time in before the qualifying. And Kumar has responded with a time of 1 minute 16.5, only 2 hundredths of a second off. Qualifying is about to get underway as the drivers are on track, hopefully to get a good lap time and get themselves a great position to start the race. The drivers are now heading out on circuit. We do see Arun Taruna leading the field as he stops at the exit of pit lane waiting for that green light for him to go out on the circuit. He is followed by Dennis Hawkins, Indra Franto, and Niranjan Kumar, who's tied with the championship lead today. So far we don't have Lewis Morano, but I assume he might be popping up at some point, which would make the championship punt that even better. The drivers are now heading out onto the circuit, getting ready for qualifying as they're doing their format out laps. This will give them an opportunity to warm up the tyres and make sure the car is tip-top perfect to get that good lap time in. The other drivers yet to go out onto the circuit at the moment is Josh Hoare, Alexis Calapano, and Piran Hirawara Jalu. who are just sitting there waiting for that time, looking for that. But we do see Alexis Clepano coming out of the circuit. As the drivers are making out, they're just getting that feel of the circuit, getting up to speed, trying to get those tyres tip-top perfect so they can get a good lap time in, which is good to see. As mentioned before, the championship is getting really, really tight at the moment, with Niranjan Kumar and Lewis Morano both tied on 54 points, followed by Jalul, who is in third place on 29 points. So hopefully he's looking to get a very good result today to improve his chances of coming into the championship. This is the 5th round, so we are at the halfway point of the season. With so many rounds left to go, there's still an opportunity for several drivers such as Jalul, Edmund Wong, Han Lang, Alexis Clepano to potentially give themselves a good position and potentially put themselves in a good place to get a good position in the championship. The only driver still yet to go out so far at this moment in the qualifying session is Josh Hoare. But most of the drivers would be starting their first qualifying hot lap, as we've only got 12 minutes left in the session, which is still a lot of time to get out there and get 1, maybe 2 laps. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for that. We just had some minor issues with our live stream, but hopefully we have fixed that so we can bring the best action for you on the circuit. Right now, if you've missed it, Jalul is currently on top of the qualifying time sheet with a time of 1 minute 17.7, but those lap times are expected to get a lot less as the session progresses. We are less than 10 minutes away from the end of the qualifying session, with most drivers, except for Josh Hoare, Niranjan Kumar and Arun Taruna, still yet to put a time on the timesheets. But Lewis Morano, who has joined the session, has gone straight to the top with a time of 1 minute 17.7, which is a bit short of, which just bumped Jalul off the top of the timesheets by 2 thousandths of a second. So it's a very tight qualifying session so far. The whole top 8 who have completed a lap time are all separated by just 4.3 seconds, which is very good to see. A good tight field today. All the drivers are competitive and they are showing some really good pace so far in this qualifying session. We do see Alexis Clepano in third place with the time of 1 minute 17.9, but I do expect him to see him make a better lap time. And he has. He's gone straight to the top with a time of 1 minute 17.6. As I just say it, as there is a driver who's just gone off the circuit. But he has knocked off Lewis Morano off the top of the timesheets by just 0.05 of a second. So it is really tight so far in terms of all the lap times. Niranjan Kumar has gone back out on the circuit. Hopefully he has got his issues with the car sorted, and hopefully he can get a good lap time in for the session. But as we look up and down the field, all the drivers are out. Most of the drivers are out on the circuit. Still, Joshua is yet to go out on the circuit. He might be waiting until the last possible couple of minutes to go out and do that lap time. That performance with a 1 minute 16 in practice, hopefully he can bring that into the qualifying session and get himself a really good position for the start of the race. There are quite a lot of drivers. Still, 4.4 seconds is what separates the whole top 8, as we do see Han Lang moving himself up into 4th place so far on the timesheets, which is absolute brilliant effort from him. He's a very good driver, and he's always in a position to be fast and consistent. And in some cases, he does take advantage, as Orange Haruna goes to the top of the timesheets with a time of 1 minute 17.3. He knocks to 2/10 of Alexis Klepano, so the times are very tight. The whole top 5 are separated by the whole top 6, my mistake, are separated by just over a second. So it's very competitive. All the drivers are getting even faster. We're only just 6 minutes away from the end of the qualifying session. And I do expect to see Lewis Morano, as I was about to say, faster lap times. Lewis Morano goes back to the top of the timesheets with a time of 1 minute 17.013. I'm expecting even more quicker lap times towards the end of the session. Absolutely amazing effort by these guys. The whole top 4 have put themselves to the 1 minute 17 mark, while the Han Lang's got himself a 1:18.8, followed by Indra Friento with the time of 1 minute 18.8. Dennis Hawkins currently in 7th with a time of 1 minute 20, followed by Chris Payne in 8th as well with a time of 1 minute 20.9. And Hanan Sen, currently the last driver who has done a lap time with a time of 1 minute 22, nearly dead. But we do see another. Kumar has gone straight to the top with a time of 1 minute 16.8. That is absolutely amazing lap time by Kumar, who is looking to improve his starting position for the race, as he is the co-leader of the championship. He has knocked off his fellow competitor for the championship, Lewis Morano, by 1/10 of a second, which is an absolutely amazing effort from him on that part. So far, the only driver still yet to score a lap time so far with 5 minutes to go is Josh Hall, the fastest driver in the practice session. Hopefully he is able to get out on the circuit and get a lap time in. Otherwise, he will be starting from the back of the grid, which would be an absolute disappointment. But hopefully he has some sort of plan in place for the race. Once again, the whole top 10 of the drivers are separated by 5 seconds, which is absolutely good to see. Still with 4 minutes left to go, I expect the 1 minute 16s to go even lower, as the only driver still yet to... The only driver at the moment in the 1 minute 16 range is Niranjan Kumar, but he's only a 1/10 of a second off Lewis Morano, who is in 2nd, and 5/10 away is Aaron Tarunu in 3rd, followed by Alexis Klepano. Again, 7/10. As Aaron Taruna goes back to the top of the timesheets with a time of 1 minute 16.5, he narrowly beats Kumar's time by 0.2 of a second. This is a very exciting qualifying session so far. But now we are still 3 minutes away, and the only driver still yet to get on the circuit is Josh Shaw, who is currently sitting at the bottom of the timesheets in 11th. And Lewis Morano goes back to the top with a time of 1 minute 16.3, narrowly beating Aaron Taruna's time by just 0.2 of a second. It's very hard to take a breather from this qualifying session. There's so much action on the circuit so far, with drivers just one-upping each other in terms of the lap times. It's absolutely good to see, and the race hasn't even started. There's a lot of competition so far. But as we look up and down the timesheets, we do see Indra Friento currently in 7th with a time of 1 minute 18.8. He has moved himself up a little bit more. But Jalul, who was slightly higher on the timesheets, has gone down to 5th place, but hopefully he can improve that lap time and get himself a couple of more positions for the starting grid of today's race. Does go a bit wide, and he does cross the line, and yet he hasn't. He didn't go a bit faster, but hopefully he can on this lap. Does go a bit wide on the exit of the first corner, but Aaron Taruna is coming wide once again. A lot of drivers are going quite wide on the first corner, which is something that can, if they're not too careful about it, that they might actually cop themselves a bit of a penalty. Lewis Morano once again goes back to the top of the timesheets with a 1 minute 16.3. Just one-upping Aaron Taruna by 0.2 of a second, as we're just narrowly getting down to the final couple of minutes of the qualifying session. About a minute and a half left to go. A lot of drivers still out on circuit trying to get that final couple of tenths to improve their lap time. Caplano does have a bit of a lock-up and goes off the circuit and back into the pit lane for him. But out on track still, we have Aaron Taruna, Niranjan Kumar, who would be looking to get back up the timesheets to help his chances of starting the race. But we also have Jalul currently in 5th place, still out on circuit. Han Lang in 6th, still out on the circuit. And Indra Friento to round out the drivers still out on the circuit, as we are about 48 seconds away from the end of the qualifying session. This has been a very eventful qualifying session so far, but we do expect Aaron Taruna, Jalul, Han Lang, Indra Friento to get that one last lap time in before the end of the qualifying session. My mistake. Taruna goes a bit wide, has ruined his chances of getting that one last lap time. But we still have Han Lang still out on circuit, hoping to get that one last lap time in, as Indra Friento goes back into the pit lane with 3 seconds left to go. Han Lang will go around to complete that final lap as the clock ticks out, and he does go off the circuit. That would end his chances of qualifying. As the qualifying session ends, we have Lewis Morano on top with a time of 1 minute 16.3, followed by Aaron Taruna with a time of 1 minute 16.5. As we do see Dennis Hawkins slightly going out of the pit lane, but he's back in. Aaron Taruna is followed by Niranjan Kumar, who is tied in the championship lead so far with a time of 1 minute 16.8, who is also followed by Alexis Clapano with a time of 1 minute 17. As we are entering the warm-up stages, the final 5 minutes, as the drivers will switch out of the qualifying spec setup into their race setup. That will involve removing the radiator tape from their cars to ensure that the cars are nice and clean and have a lot of air coming into the cars, into the radiators to keep the cars nice and cool. Dennis Hawkins is at the exit of the pit lane, who is ready to go out on the circuit to get that final preparations done to start for the race. Drivers will be getting ready to make the final preparations, as we do see Chris Payne exiting the pit lane, getting ready to go out on the circuit to make sure his car is tip-top perfect for the race, as the other drivers are currently doing the final adjustments to the setup of their car to ensure that they are ready and able to continue for the race. With the 40-minute race, one pit stop will be necessary for the drivers to not only change tyres but fill up to the end of the race, because a full tank will not get you the full 40 minutes. You may get to about 30 minutes at most, but a pit stop will be necessary for these drivers to complete the race without having to run out of fuel. Out on the circuit at the moment, we have Alexis Clapano, Dennis Hawkins, Chris Payne, Jalil and Lewis Morano are both heading out on the circuit to get their final preparation ready for the race. These McLaren 650S GT3s are the same cars that were used in the recent World's Fastest Gamer series, where hosted by the McLaren F1 team. These cars are released by the creators of rFactor 2, and they are quite very nice cars to drive, as I have driven these cars. But to my belief, that these cars are well suited to this circuit. So it's very fast and flowing, but with only 2 slow corners. The rest of the circuit is fast, and it flows quite lovely for these drivers, as we see more drivers heading out onto the circuit to get a couple of laps in and get themselves ready for the race, with only just 2 minutes and 50 seconds left to the end of the session. This warm-up session is quite necessary for these guys to be ready for the race, as all the drivers are just about out on the circuit at the moment. With just 2 minutes left in the session to go, the drivers are getting out on circuit, maybe getting that one lap, fast qualifying, not qualifying lap time, a lap time that they will see as we see Jalul has gone off the circuit and put himself back into the pit lane. Chris Payne is the only driver so far to have made a lap time at the time of 1 minute 23.7. But Alexis Clapano goes to the top of the timesheets with a time of 1 minute 18.7. The lap times you do see in this session is a good idea of what the pace of the drivers will be like for the race. But there are several corners on this track that are quite altitude changing, which can put the drivers off. As we've seen in the qualifying session, several drivers have gone a bit wide and spun the cars. But this could be a slight challenge for these drivers, as Lewis Morano goes to the top of the timesheets at the time of 1 minute 17.8. It is one of these great circuits that it's nice and short and easy to. It's fast and flying, but mistakes are something that can happen. Well, another thing we have seen is the drivers going wide on several of the corners, which I believe it could be turn 1, if I'm correct about that. This could play a role, as the drivers going wide could, if they go wide too much, they could cop a track extension penalty, which could affect their chances of getting a good position, because if you go wide too many times, you may cop a penalty of some sort, whether it be a drive-through penalty or a time penalty. Kumar has gone back to the top of the timesheets with a time of 1 minute 17.5 as the warm-up session has finished, as the drivers will now be a few seconds away from the start of the race. But as we're looking up and down the timesheets, we do see times of 1 minute 17s, 1 minute 18s, 19s, and 21s. This will be a very ideal look at what times the drivers are going to be doing for the race.
Attention grid, all non-essential personnel leave the grid now.
We are now just 40 seconds away from the start of the formation lap, where the drivers will go do one formation lap around the circuit. But instead of having a rolling start like normal GT3 races, the drivers will be going back to the grid and having a standing start. This is made to be quite a bit of a challenge for several of the drivers over the last few rounds, where some drivers will get a really good start while others will have a slow start. The last couple of rounds, we've had issues where drivers have had comings together, as Aaron Taruna is still the only driver yet to be on the grid. He has just got on the grid, so the whole grid is now on as the drivers start their formation lap. Well, I will give you the idea of the starting grid. On pole position, we have Lewis Morano, who is followed by Aaron Taruna to share the front row of the grid. Championship co-leader Niranjan Kumar sits in third. He is accompanied by Alexis Clepano. In fifth place, we have Jalul. In sixth place, we have Han Lang. Indra Ferento is back in the pit lane, and he appears to be out of this race. Not too sure what happened there. But seventh place, we do have Dennis Hawkins, who is followed by Chris Payne, Hanon Sam, and Josh Hall to round out the top 10. We will try and find out what happened to Indra Ferento, who has seemed to have dropped out during the formation lap. The drivers are currently going through turns 5 and 6, so it won't be long left until they get back to the grid and start the race. Once again, this race is a 40-minute sprint race, which will put the drivers into a good position. Not too long, but not too short, as it gives these guys a good challenge. Drivers are now one turn away from the couple of corners left until the end of the formation lap. For everyone watching, welcome to the live stream. In case you've missed the qualifying session, we do have so far a 10-car lineup getting ready to start the race. All the drivers are nice and bunched up together. As the information I'm getting is Indra Ferento has had some sort of issue with his wheel that he's been unable to participate in this race, which is an absolute shame. The drivers are now lining up on the grid. We do see Chris Payne a little bit further ahead. He might be off. The lights are on. The lights are out, and away we go for the 40-minute race as Lewis Morano gets off to a good start, but Niranjan Kumar gets up into second. He overtakes Aaron Taruna into the first corner. All the drivers are coming out of the first corner. There's a free wide with Alexis Clepano, Aaron Taruna. Aaron Taruna's had a good start. He has lost one place, but the championship leaders are currently head to head, currently 1 and 2, as they head into the first couple of corners of this race. But as we look through the back of the field, everyone is still nice and competitive. But out in front, Lewis Morano currently leads by 1/10 of a second over Niranjan Kumar, as this will make, as they head into turns 5 and 6. Lewis Morano did have a better cornering, and that has led to Kumar having Aaron Taruna. As we see Jalul is out of this race, he must have had some sort of issue. That is an absolute shame for him. But back to the race, the whole top 9 so far in this race are separated by 5 seconds, as Hanon Sam is falling behind, which is an absolute shame. Josh Hogg does overtake Chris Payne for 7th place, but back out in front, Lewis Morano will come across the line just finished this first lap in the lead, followed by his championship rival Niranjan Kumar in second place, followed by Arun Taruna. From what the information I'm getting, Jalul had to pull out due to some sort of a connection issue with the race, which is an absolute shame for him. But as we do see, as the drivers do start their second lap, we've had several drivers move up and down the grid so far. Arun Taruna, who did start second, is now running in third after Kumar had a really brilliant start off the grid, which he managed to overtake Arun Taruna heading into before the first corner. But Kumar is getting closer to Lewis Morano as they head into 5 and 6 once again out of the exit, heading through the trees on that long straight, the Andretti straight. The whole top three is separated by just a second, while Alexis Klepano is another second behind in 4th place. But we do see Hanon Sam falling back a little bit in 9th place, 10 seconds off the pace. Hopefully he can be able to get more pace into that car and get himself a bit further up. In 8th place we have Chris Payne, who's currently 9 seconds behind, running his own race. Josh Hall, who started from the back of the grid, he's all the way up into 7th place after having a good couple of laps so far in the event. But Lewis Morano has opened up that gap for first place by 5/10 of a second. But the drivers are struggling to get through those twisty corners. We do see the tyres do have a bit of smoke coming up from them. But there is a bit of a battle between Josh Hoare and Dennis Hawkins for 6th place. There was a bit of a move that went through there with those two drivers, which is good to see. There is a very nice battle. But back out in front, the gap between Morano and Kumar has gone bigger by 7/10 of a second. But Taruna is keeping a good pace behind his teammate, Niranjan Kumar. Not only the drivers are fighting for a drivers' championship, some drivers are competing as teams, which is good to see. But as we go up and down the field, we do see the drivers spacing themselves out. By Hanon Sam falling behind by just 30 seconds, as Lewis Morano goes a little bit wide on the exit of the final corner onto the grass, but that has not affected him as he has extended that lead up to 1 second over Niranjan Kumar. This race will break up the two championship leaders of Morano and Kumar, who are both tied on the on 54 points in the championship. So this race will definitely separate the two of them, as we are in the 5th round of the McLaren 650S Cup. But we do see Hanon Sam stopped out on the circuit and he's in the pit lane. He has retired from this race, which is an absolute shame. Not sure what happened there for him, but as we go back to the action, Lewis Morano is still in the lead, and he is, with every lap, he is still extending that lead over Niranjan Kumar. Morano must have a slightly better setup for this race, as the cars are all but identical. These cars are very identical, and it does come down to setup on how you set up the car, which will determine how your pace will be for the race so far. But Morano is settling in with the times of 1 minute 17, followed by Kumar, who is lapping so far with a time of 1 minute 18 on average, where Taruna's averaging 1 minute 18s as well. Most of the drivers are doing 1 minute 18s, but Lewis Morano is the fastest driver in terms of lap times so far in this race with 1 minute 17s, which is something that can be of an advantage for him as this race progresses. That gap will get that little bit bigger, but the gap is slightly going a bit smaller for Niranjan Kumar, who seems to be on a better lap this time round. He's now down to 8/10 over Morano as they head into turns 5 and 6. As the battle for first and second, it is getting really interesting. We haven't had any major issues in the first couple of laps except for the retirement of Jalul and Hanon Sam. But all the drivers are now spaced apart as we're 4 laps in and 6 minutes into this 40-minute race. So we just passed the 10% mark of this race. Morano still leads after starting from pole position. Now has the gap did get smaller between himself and Kumar, but now he has extended that gap back out to 9/10 of a second. Aaron Taruno is slowly falling behind with 2 seconds off the pace from Luis Morano, with Alexis Clopano sitting in 4th, driving his own race. The average of 1 minute 18 to 1 minute 19 to this race. He is followed by Han Lang, who is starting to come under pressure from Josh Hoare, who's currently sitting in 6th place, wanting to take that 5th place. He has been averaging 1 minute 19 so far this race. Dennis Hawkins is a bit further back down in 7th place, followed by Chris Payne, who's 23 seconds off the pace of the race leader. But once these the pit stops do start to come into effect, drivers will have to decide whether they pit early or pit later. But in most cases, pitting earlier is a bit of a smarter strategy for the faster drivers, as they are able to get the tyres more up to speed. But the gap is now back down to 2/10 of a second. Niranjan Kumar has lessened the gap between the two drivers and will be looking to make an overtake at some point. But the battle is still on with Josh Hoare and Han Lang. But Josh Hoare has taken 5th place into the second to last corner, heading to the last corner. That has confirmed his place in the 5th spot for now. But the gap is getting a little bit bigger now between Luis Morano and Niranjan Kumar. As Morano goes wide, this could lead an opportunity for Kumar to potentially go for an overtake, maybe into turns 5 and 6. But he is a bit back. He's a couple of car lengths away from Morano, but that could easily be changed as this race is progressing. But the battle is still on between Josh Hoare and Han Lang. Han Lang has dropped back a little bit more. Josh Hoare probably has a slightly better setup in terms of the car and a better handling of the circuit. But we do have Aaron Taruno still in 3rd place now, 2 seconds off the pace. But Kumar has lessened the gap to just less than 2/10 of a second. So he must have had a really good exit through turns 5 and 6. But the gap is, Morano is so quick through these fast corners. Kumar has caught up to him in the slower corners. So Morano must have a really good low downforce setup, while Kumar is more set up towards the corners. As they come past the line to start their 7th lap of the race, Morano still leads, having not been challenged so far in this race, starting on pole position. Kumar, who did start in 3rd place, jumped up in 2nd place in the race. Aaron Taruno is sitting in 3rd place on that final podium position, 2 seconds off the pace. But if anything were to happen between Morano and Kumar, Aaron Taruno is right there to take advantage of any issues that the two leading drivers may get into. Josh Hoare has moved up into 5th place, starting from 10th on the grid. His pace has been going very well, with an average lap time of 1 minute 19 to 1 minute 18 up on the timesheets. Dennis Hawkins is running in 7th place, just behind Han Lang by about 7 seconds, while Chris Payne is running in 8th place and averaging decent lap times of 1 minute 22s. But back out in front, Luis Morano still has that leap, and he has extended that gap. Kumar must have had a bad couple of corners, as the gap is now to 0.6 of a second. But Morano does go a little bit wide on the final corner. That could give Kumar a little bit of a chance to catch up a little bit more as they enter the first turn on the 8th lap of this race. We had 10 minutes into the event with half an hour left to go. In about another 20 or so minutes, the pit stops will start to come into effect with these drivers, as Niranjan Kumar goes a little bit wide. He better be careful of that, as he might expect a penalty if he goes too wide and track extends. But about a car length is what separates the top two at the moment by 10th of a second, as Morano goes for a defensive move heading into turns 5 and 6. That has put Kumar a little bit off, but hopefully he can be able to get himself a good run out of the turn 6, heading onto the Andretti straight. But Aaron Taruna has lessened that gap once again to about 1.9 seconds. So the battle between Morano and Kumar is allowing Aaron Taruna to catch up slightly, as Kumar is looking on the inside to see where he can attempt an overtake of Lewis Morano, as these two drivers are doing very decent 1 minute 18s, 1 minute 17s. But in the last about 5 or so laps, Lewis Morano has been doing 1 minute 18s, while Kumar in the last 5 laps or so has been doing 1 minute 18s as well. These drivers are very even when it comes to the lap times, as Morano goes a little bit more wider. These guys are going to be careful if they don't, as Morano goes a little bit wide heading into the sweeper, but still manages to have that half a second gap over Niranjan Kumar. 7 seconds down the road, we have Alexis Clepano, followed by another 2 seconds is Josh Hoare, who is slowly catching up to Alexis Clepano. Josh Hoare is having some really good pace so far in this race, with the mid 1 minute 18s so far in this race. But the gap is getting less between the battle is still on between Lewis Morano and Niranjan Kumar. Although Aaron Taruna has fallen back a little bit more as the race progresses, but he is able to put himself into a position where any mistakes between Lewis Morano and Niranjan Kumar, Aaron Taruna could be in a place where he can pick up a couple of positions, if not the race lead. So a very exciting time so far in this race. We are about nearly a quarter of an hour into this race, about 10 laps into the book so far, with Lewis Morano still leading, having a bit of a challenge from Niranjan Kumar, who's currently sitting in second, as Kumar is trying to get a little bit faster into the corners, seeing where he can be a bit faster than Lewis Morano into these sweeping corners. The first few corners do have a bit of an up and downhill part mid-corner, but the gap is down to about a couple of car lengths between Lewis Morano and Niranjan Kumar. But as we look up and down the field, we do see Alexis Clepano still sitting in 4th place, doing nice consistent 1 minute 18s, 1 minute 19s. But Josh Hoare is still doing those consistent 1 minute 18s, which in a few laps he may be able to catch up to Alexis Clepano and challenge for 4th place. Han Lang is a little bit further back down in 6th place, having himself a bit off the pace with average lap times of 1 minute 19s, which is an absolute shame. He has a lot of good pace in him, especially in the qualifying session. But Dennis Hawkins is currently in 7th place, with averaging about 1 minute 20s, 1 minute 21s so far in this race, and rounding out the drivers still out on the circuit at the moment. We do have Chris Payne. It does appear to be getting a little darker out on the circuit. There may have been a forecast of some rain, but it appears that it could be my imagination, because it's still nice and sunny on certain parts of the circuit. But once again, the gap between Lewis Morano and Niranjan Kumar is down to 4/10 of a second, and Niranjan Kumar is trying to close that gap and look to be doing an overtake. He had a look there on turns 5 and 6, but was too far back to go for an opportunity to overtake Lewis Morano for 1st place. But the battle between Niranjan Kumar and Lewis Morano, Aaron Taruna is managing to keep up with these guys and has closed the gap a little bit more to about 1.8 seconds. So the battle between these two drivers, as Morano is at certain points of the circuit looking to stay defensive from Niranjan Kumar, Aaron Taruna is able to get himself into a position where he can catch up to these drivers as they cross the line to start their 12th lap of the race. We are now properly 15 minutes into this race, so we do expect the pit stops to occur in the next 10 or so minutes as the pace continues. But Alexis Clepano has gone quite a bit wide into the first corner. Josh Hoare has closed that gap slightly more, as his pace has been very good thus far in this race, at the moment. But Josh Hoare has the pace to be up with Niranjan Kumar, Lewis Morano, and potentially Aaron Taruna. While Alexis Clepano's pace has been about late 1 minute 18s, early 1 minute 19s. So Josh Hoare's pace is a bit faster than Alexis Clepano, and I do see that Josh Hoare could potentially catch up to Clepano and potentially challenge him for a position for 4th place. As we look further down the pack, we do see Hahn Lang, Dennis Hawkins, and Chris Payne, who are slowly losing time over the race leaders, as Chris Payne is 1 minute and 5 seconds behind. But he could easily close that gap in terms of the pit stops, depending on the strategy he does go for. Dennis Hawkins currently sitting in 7th place, is about 35 seconds down the road, who is just behind Hahn Lang in 6th place, 17 seconds down the road. But the gap between Alexis Clepano and Josh Hoare has narrowed down to just about 2 seconds, as they are on the 13th lap of this race. Niranjan Kumar has fallen a little bit further back down over Lewis Morano. He must have had some sort of issue at some point that I may have missed. But Aaron Taruna has closed the gap between himself and Niranjan Kumar. So this could put Taruna into a position where he could potentially get 2nd place in this race. But we do see Dennis Hawkins in the pit lane making his first stop of the race. Whether it is scheduled or unscheduled, we may not know. But out in front, once again, Lewis Morano has extended that gap to about 2 seconds. Kumar has gone wide, and he has spun the car into the second to last corner. That has put Aaron Taruna into 2nd place. And as Kumar goes into the pit lane, he must have had some sort of issues with his tyres. But he will be going further down the field, as Josh Hoare, as I said earlier in this race, has closed the gap to Alexis Clepano for now 3rd place in this race. Josh Hoare has been running very decent mid 1 minute 18s compared to Alexis Clepano's 1 minute 19s, 1 minute 20s for the last of the race. But we are getting told that Niranjan Kumar is experiencing some sort of screen flicker on him, which is an absolute shame to see, as Dennis Hawkins must have done some sort of damaged pit stop. He comes back out in 8th place, 1 lap down. But the gap is now extending between Lewis Morano and Aaron Taruna. Lewis Morano is getting away further down the road. But the battle is still on for 3rd place between Alexis Clepano and Josh Hoare. The drivers are now down to less than a second, about 7/10 of a second, if I believe. So Josh Hoare will be looking at where he can potentially go for an overtake on Alexis Clepano. What is his pros on the circuit? What is his cons? But Alexis Clepano goes off and into the pits. He could be making his pit stop for this race. That has promoted Josh Hoare up into 3rd place after starting dead last on the on the grid. He is now up into 3rd place. With the pace that he's going, he could be able to put himself into a good position for a good result today. Alexis Clepano is in the pit lane, making a pit stop of some kind. He may have run his tyres a bit too much, as we are halfway through the race. This could be his one stop for the event so far, as Lewis Morano is still out in front, but the gap between himself and Aaron Taruna is only now down to 1.5 seconds, with Josh Hoare further back down in 9th place, further back down in 3rd place, but 9 seconds behind the 2 leading cars of Lewis Morano and Aaron Taruna. Dennis Hawkins has come back into the pit lane, it seems. He must be having some sort of issue with his car, and not too sure what's happening with him. But Niranjan Kumar is back out on the circuit after having some sort of issue with his connection, I believe. He's now down in 5th place, 44 seconds off the pace, which is an absolute shame for Naranjan Kumar, who was running very well and challenging for the race lead so far in this race. But we do see Han Lang entering the pit lane. It is that time of the race where the drivers will start to be making pit stops. Lewis Morano is still leads, but Chris Payne has gone off the circuit, probably letting Lewis Morano and Aaron Taruna go through, which is quite a kind gesture from Chris Payne. But that has lessened the gap between himself and Aaron Taruna. Aaron Taruna is looking for a way to overtake Lewis Morano, and it's now down to just half a second between the two drivers, currently battling for the lead. But the gap is closing, with Josh Hall now finding another second over the two leaders of Lewis Morano and Aaron Taruna. Depending on how his pit strategy goes, he could be putting himself into a good place where he might challenge for the race lead if it all works out for him. But now, due to Han Lang being in the pit lane, Naranjan Kumar has moved up into 4th place. Hopefully he can put himself back out on the pace and get back out up to the top of the standings so far. But it seems he did go a bit wide in the early start, in the second to last corner, which he decided to go into the pit lane to make his pit stop. But the gap has now extended once again. Lewis Morano is getting a bit further down the way. It's now down to 7/10 of a second as Dennis Hawkins appears to be going back into the pit lane. I'm not too sure what issue he's having so far, but it appears he's still continuous coming into the pit lane. This might be his 3rd visit to the pit lane in this race. Not too sure. I might get some more information on that matter. But the gap is now extended, has lessened now. Lewis Morano must have had a bad exit through turns 5 and 6, as Aaron Taruna has now lessened the gap to about 8/10 of a second. Josh Shaw is still running consistently behind in 3rd place, only 8 seconds off the pace of the two leading drivers. But Lewis Morano and Aaron Taruna are in a position where they've got to make a pit stop at some point in this race. I do expect it to happen in the next 5 minutes or so before the 30-minute mark of this race, as we are just past the halfway mark of the event. So far, the only drivers who have pitted is Naranjan Kumar, who did have a spin on the final corner just by pit entry, so he did take the opportunity to go in the pit lane. Han Lang has already made his pit stop. Dennis Hawkins has made multiple pit stops for some unknown issue that he might be having with the car so far in this race. But the drivers still yet to pit at the moment is Lewis Morano, Aaron Taruna, Josh Hoare, who started in 10th place at the back of the grid, who's now up into 3rd place, which is an absolutely amazing effort from the McLaren driver. Naranjan Kumar has gained more positions back after that early spin and pit stop, who is now running in 4th place, followed by Alexis Clepano running in 5th place. Han Lang currently in 6th place, Chris Payne in 7th place, a lap down over the race leader, and Dennis Hawkins, who is currently last of the drivers still out on the circuit, in 8th place, but 2 laps down, which is an absolute shame for him. But the gap has extended to about 1 second or so between Lewis Morano and Aaron Taruna. I do expect these drivers to be making a pit stop in the next 5 or so minutes, as Lewis Morano goes quite wide in the first corner, as well as Aaron Taruna. Once again, it is that factor where you can't be going too wide too often, as you go past the white line, you could, and do it one too many times, you may expect to have some sort of penalty go your way if you keep track extending. But the gap is now down to 1.4 seconds, as the consistency of Lewis Morano, who's still doing average lap times of 1 minute 18. He did do on lap 17 a time of 1 minute 19, but he quickly put himself back up the pace. Aaron Taruna's lap times are roughly the same. I believe lap 17 was when he did that when he lapped Chris Payne for this race. But there's quite a lot of consistency with the drivers in the top 3, where they're all doing 1 minute 18s. the gap has been extended. Josh Hoare has fallen back slightly bit more. He was 8 seconds behind, now he's now 9 seconds. Niranjan Kumar currently in fourth with 43 seconds. That spin and the pit stop has cost him quite dearly so far in this race. He can't be making too many mistakes as he is the co-championship leader, and if the results stay the way it is, this may have some serious effects in his title hopes. Currently in 5th place, we do see Alexis Clepano, followed by Han Lang, who is about to be lapped by Lewis Morano as they exit turn 6. So far, Lewis Morano once again still leads on his 20th lap of the race so far, but no drivers have been in the pits for the last couple of minutes, but we do expect to see pit stops from Lewis Morano, Aaron Taruna, Josh Hoare. I believe Alexis Clepano still hasn't pit. So those drivers will be owing us a pit stop. And as I say that, Lewis Morano does go into the pit lane that has gifted Aaron Taruna the lead of the race, potentially momentarily, as Lewis Morano does make his one pit stop so far of this race. That'll put him into a position where he can top up the fuel tank and put new tyres on the car that will get him to the end of this race. Josh Hoare now gains 2nd place in this race, but he as well as Aaron Taruna are still yet to give us a pit stop that they do owe to get themselves to the end of this race. As Morano finishes his pit stop and he exits the pits in 3rd place, it does say 7 seconds on the timesheets, but that gap may be a bit less between the two drivers. So we're still yet to see Josh Hoare and Aaron Taruna yet to pit so far in this race, but slowly behind we do see Dennis Hawkins still about in 8th place, 2 laps down, having made several trips to the pit lane, which has cost him quite dearly. But Aaron Taruna has now gone to the pit lane, so it is up to Josh Hoare to decide when he will pit, but he's going to stay out for one more lap, which could potentially cost him at some point, because when they do pit, they'll most likely swap tyres and add a bit more fuel to the car, but it takes about 2 to 3 laps for the fuel for the tyres to warm up and get up to a proper operating temperature. This could put Lewis Morano in a position where he could retain the lead after the pit stops cycle has gone through, as Chris Payne goes into the pit lane as well to make his stop of the race. Aaron Taruna has gone back down to 3rd place after making his pit stop, but Josh Hoare is still out on circuit. He may be pitting maybe this lap or the next. We're not too sure as he goes through turns 5 and 6, which is the slowest section of this circuit. He currently leads by 24 seconds, but hopefully he can be able to extend that gap depending on the time of his pit stop. He may just do a splash and dash or replace the tyres. The tyres do wear quite a bit at the 30-minute mark, as we are now 10 minutes away from the end of the 40-minute race of the 5th round of the McLaren 650S GT3 Cup on RF2 Asia TV. Josh Hoare has now entered the pit lane for his one stop of the race so far. As Chris Payne leaves the pit lane after making his pit stop, he must have made a lengthy pit stop to swap for tyres. But 24 seconds, nearly 25 seconds is the gap. But as Lewis Morano comes around the 2nd to last corner and now the final corner, he will gain back the lead of this race, as Josh Hoare is still in the pit lane making his pit stop, and Aaron Taruna will retain 2nd place after the pit stop cycle. But now Josh Hoare has come out of the pit lane. He will be coming under a lot of pressure from Niranjan Kumar, who has made his pit stop a short time ago. So as Josh Hoare's tyres will start to warm up, it'll take about 2 laps. He will come under immense pressure Naranjan Kumar, who is now 9 seconds down the road. This whole pit stop strategy may have worked for Josh Hoare, who did start at the back of the grid, who's now running well in 3rd place. But it'll take about 2 laps or so for Josh Hoare's tyres to warm up to optimal temperature. That would put Kumar in a position where he could take 3rd place from Josh Hoare. But out in front, Lewis Morano, after the pit stop cycle, has retained the lead and extended the lead of the race with Artem Taruna in 2nd place, 3.2 seconds down the road. Josh Hoare is currently sitting in 3rd place at 8 seconds off the race lead, who is now starting to come under a little bit more pressure from Niranjan Kumar, who did pit a while ago in this race after having a bit of a spin in the second to last corner. I don't think the tyres are up to the temperature just yet for Josh Hoare. He may have to do 1 more lap before those tyres are properly warmed up, full of event. This could give Kumar an opportunity to make an overtake, as the drivers do go a little bit, the tail lane does go a little bit out coming out of the first corner. But the pace of Josh Hoare is alright so far, because he's just done 1 minute 18s most of this race, so his pace is very good, as well as Niranjan Kumar, who's been doing 1 minute 18s as well. So the whole top 4 have been doing average lap times of 1 minute 18s, which is good to see, a good consistent pace from the drivers. But Lewis Morano's pace has slowed a little bit, but that could be because he did make his pit stop, which would have involved him having to make sure those tyres are warmed up to its optimal temperature. But the gap is now down to 2.7 seconds. So Morano is extending that gap between the drivers, as we see Chris Payne once again in the pit lane. He must be having some sort of issue, the same, just like Dennis Hawkins, who made multiple stops into the pit lane of this race. But we do see Josh Hoare still in 3rd place, 10 seconds behind Niranjan Kumar. Niranjan Kumar must have had some sort of issue at some point in this race. He has now fallen back down by about 10, 11 seconds from Josh Hoare. But as we look up and down the field, all the drivers are quite spread out at the moment, with the smallest gap between 2 drivers would be 3 seconds, which is between Lewis Morano and Artem Taruna, who currently sits in 2nd place. Morano has had a very good race thus far, having the last 2 rounds he's had issues at several points of those rounds, which has cost him quite dearly, which gave Niranjan Kumar an advantage, where he was able to score the 2 race wins that Lewis Morano did not. But it all seems to have gone a bit pear-shaped for Niranjan Kumar in this race so far, who did start in 3rd place, but now is running in 4th place. He was challenging for the race lead in the early stages of this race, but a spin has cost him quite dearly and has now put him back into 4th spot. But he is slowly falling off the pace a little bit more. They're not too sure what's happening with him, but his last lap time was a 1 minute 21, and on lap 25 he did a 1 minute 28. So he must have had some sort of off at some point on one of those laps. But the gap is now back down to 2.8 seconds as Artem Taruna is trying to catch up to Lewis Morano and potentially challenge him for the lead. But we are only 5 minutes away from the end of this race. Artem Taruna is running out of time to catch up to Lewis Morano. But Josh Hoare is 8 seconds down the circuit. He's still running those nice, consistent 1 minute 18s, 1 minute 19s, as his tyres will now be fully up to temperature, and putting himself into a position where he can get more fast lap times and maybe lessen that gap between himself and Artem Taruna. But Niranjan Kumar is still in 4th place, 21 seconds off Lewis Morano. And just ahead of him is Chris Payne, who he will be looking to lap at in a few laps time or so. As the 27 we're now on the 27th lap of this race. Lewis Morano has led for pretty much the entirety of this race so far, except for during the pit stop cycle where he did hit at the, to my belief, at the right time. He still leads, but with only by 2 seconds over Arvin Taruna, who did start. He did have a bit of a bad start, having lost his position to Niranjan Kumar at the start of the race, but he's now back up into second place. In third place, we have Josh Hall, who I assume is probably my pick for the driver of the day, who did start in dead last on the grid, failing to do a single lap time in qualifying, but has made it up for, who's currently running in third place in this race after having a really brilliant start and effort throughout the whole entirety of the race. In fourth place, we do have Niranjan Kumar, who is the co-championship leader, but probably not after this race, as he's running in fourth place. He was running in second in the early stages of this race, but came into a little bit of grief at the 20-minute mark or so, where he did have a bit of an off and spin. He must have had another spin at some point after his pit stop, as he was battling with Josh Hall for third place, but he has fallen quite a bit off the pace. In fifth place, we do have Alexis Clepano, 35 seconds down the road from Lewis Morano, currently running really strong with his 1 minute 20 lap times. In sixth place, we have Han Lang, who is at 50 seconds down the road from Lewis Morano, running consistent 1 minute 19s, 1 minute 20s, but he has had a couple of laps where he has done 2 minutes, which I assume must have been his pit stop in this race. Yep, I can confirm. And in seventh place, we have Chris Payne, who was 2 laps down on the race leader. He was one of 2 drivers to have made multiple pit stops for some sort of issue in this race. And in 8th place, Dennis Hawkins, 2 laps down, same problem as Chris Payne. He has made multiple trips to the pit lane, as we are now 2 minutes away from the end of the race. So far, we've had 2 retirements and 1 non-starter. We have Hanan Sam, who had some sort of issue, I believe, and Piraja Jalul also having to retire due to an issue with his steering wheel, which has affected him quite dearly, which did force him into retirement. And we have Indra Friento, who dropped out at some point at the beginning of this race, which is an absolute shame. He did have a really good starting position. But as now we are 39 minutes into this race, we've only just got a minute left to go. The drivers will be starting their second last lap or last lap of this race, depending on how Morano gets around 5 and 6. He is heading onto the back straight. He could potentially be doing 1 more lap after this, but I'm not too sure. But he has extended that gap once again to Arvin Taruna by 3.5 seconds, which is a really good pace. Lewis Morano has basically been unchallenged for this whole race after having several issues in the last 2 rounds. He has bounced back to take the lead so far, but he could be starting his final lap. No, he's just crossing the line to finish the race with 30 laps done in this race. Lewis Morano wins the 5th round of the McLaren 650S GT3 Cup Challenge. Arvin Taruna will cross the line in 2nd place, while Josh Hall will cross the line in 3rd place after a brilliant effort from Josh Hall, starting from the back of the grid to finish in 3rd place. He's been kept nice and strong all day, having consistent lap times with the likes of Lewis Morano and Arvin Taruna. In 4th place, we have Niranjan Kumar, who must have made a couple of mistakes, which has cost him quite dearly, as he was battling for the lead in the early stages of this race. In 5th place, we have Alexis Clepano. He had a very good showing today with consistent 1 minute 19s, 1 minute 20s. He wasn't on the pace for the race leaders, but he has come home to finish in 5th place. Han Lang will cross the line in 6th place. Chris Payne will cross the line in 7th place, and Dennis Hawkins will round out the rest of the field, who have finished this race in 8th place. Lewis Morano, the race leader, was virtually unchallenged in this race. He's still going quite strong on the circuit. I'm not too sure if he's finished. It says on the timesheets that he has finished the race, but he could just be doing a nice quick victory lap for him as he does come into the final corner. He's stopping on the main circuit. He could be doing a celebratory donut as he hits the wall. Oops, daisies. He's going to try and do some celebratory donuts. It was an absolute brilliant effort from Lewis Morano for this whole race. Virtually unchallenged except during the pit stop cycle where he did drop down to third place. But besides having the challenge from Niranjan Kumar, who did fall back into fourth place, Lewis Morano was virtually unchallenged for this race. But an absolutely brilliant effort from all the drivers so far in this race. We will be talking to several of the drivers very shortly in terms of how their race went, and we will be. Please join us in a few seconds where we will be joining live with several of the drivers for some post-race interviews. Hopefully, we will be able to talk with the race winner, Lewis Morano, as well as several other drivers to give us a bit of insight into how their race went so far in this race. Please join us in a few minutes as we are trying to work out if any driver would like to be giving us our thoughts onto the event that we've just had, the 40-minute race. Absolutely amazing. A lot of mostly clean effort. Not many incidences between drivers. We did see a few drivers go off the circuit, such as Niranjan Kumar, who basically did cost him second place for this race. And we did see several drivers, including Chris Payne and Dennis Hawkins, having to make several stops into the pit lane. Joining us right now, we have Chris Payne, who did a very brilliant effort. Welcome, Chris.
Yeah, g'day. Thanks, Lockie.
We noticed that during the race you made several pit stops. Can you give us a bit of insight into that?
Yeah, sure. I just went in for the scheduled stop, but I thought I was going nice and slow down pit lane, but got pinged for speeding, so just had to go in for the penalty.
Ah, so you had a speeding the pit lane violation.
Yeah, no damage or anything like that, so very routine pit stop. Just a bit unlucky, I think, on the entry.
Besides that small little mistake in the pit lane, how did you think your race went in terms of pace?
Yeah, it's a great circuit, this one. I tend to get a bit caught out on the hairpin, so I knew I wasn't that quick. So I was just aiming for consistency. Minor spin early on, which cost me about 10 seconds, but beyond that, it was very clean.
Well, starting from a bit further towards the back of the pack, you did move up to finish in 7th place, which is an absolutely brilliant effort from you, as always. Thank you for joining us, Chris Payne.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Lockie.
No problem. Hopefully, we'll be having several more drivers to give us a little word on how their race has gone so far. But we will be looking hopefully we might have a short word from Lewis Morano with a bit of luck, and several other drivers can give us a bit of insight into their race. Joining us at the moment, we have the race winner, Lewis Morano. Welcome to the stream, Lewis.
Hello, good evening.
Lewis, you started on pole position. and you basically went virtually unchallenged in this race. How did it go for you?
It went pretty well, although I had to make sure that had to manage my tire wear throughout the race because the track had some high speed corners, so had to be slow on the first part, and then when the pit stops came, and then uh, yeah, I just kept it on the kept cool, kept it on the racing line, and then brought it home all the way to the win.
Mm-hmm. Basically, with your race win so far and the issues that Niranjan Kumar did get involved in, this has now put you back solely as the championship leader in this race. Does that add a bit of confidence coming to the final 5 rounds of the season?
Pretty much. 5 rounds is still a long way to go. Like I said, previous round, anything can still happen between me, Niranjan, and the other guys who are participating in this championship. So we have to wait and see how things pan out on the next few rounds. And as for me, I'll just keep doing my best, and that's pretty much it.
Well, great effort for today. You did show a really good performance in this race. Hopefully we can see you still back out on top of the podium for the final few rounds. For the rest of the championship, best of luck.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
That was Lewis Morano, driver of Ambu Racing, who now regains sole championship lead of this race. The next round of the McLaren 650S Cup, we will be making a stop over into, I believe, Japan, where the next, I'm not too sure what the circuits are for the circuit, but next weekend we do have the RF2 Asia Endurance Series, as we will be heading over to Matazuka for the 2.4 hours of Matazuka. So next weekend, we will be taking a break from the McLaren Cup for the Endurance Series. So hopefully everyone had a really good time watching the stream tonight. I've been Lachlan Andrews, and until next time, bye for now.